right? But people, you can see people sometimes, they look at these motors and they're like, wow. And then they're like, I'll never have sex with my partner again if I have sex with this, right? Or they worry that they're going to do nerve damage or that it's numbing their body out or something like that. And the truth is, it doesn't do any damage to your body. It doesn't numb your nerves. It doesn't change your nerves or your body in any way to use a vibrator up against your body. I mean, there are a few people who will go to extremes. If you're damaging your skin, then you probably need some lubricant or to not use a vibrator so much. But that's a really rare example. Most people, what happens is that they love the vibration. Vibration, when you press it up against the body, it causes you to have become instantly conscious in that part of your body. And in a world where we are stressed out and overwhelmed and we've got car payments and kids, and to suddenly take all of your energy and put it somewhere else can feel so good, right? It's proven that a person can have, in particular females can have orgasms much, much faster with a vibrator than they can with their own fingers or their partner's fingers or bodies or mouth. And so it's a great way to have a really quick escape, a really quick getting grounded in your own physicality and that kind of thing. This is where it trips people up. Mm-hmm. So, to use your hands or your fingers on average, it takes your average woman about 20 minutes to have an orgasm, just rubbing her own clitoris. When you put a vibrator into the mix, that comes down to 6 minutes or 4 minutes or sometimes even less, depending upon her body and the toy that she's using. And so it becomes much easier and faster to have an orgasm with the toy than it does even with your own hands. And what that does, rather than mess with the body, is it messes with the brain. Because the human brain is fascinating. It's designed to find the fastest possible way to get anything done. And this isn't just about sex. I'll give you a couple of other examples so you can kind of embody what I'm talking about. I don't know if you have to drive to work, and your drive to work should take 15 minutes, and then you have a day where it takes 25 or 30 minutes, and you sit in the car and you lose your freaking mind, right? You're like, this should not take this long. This idiot's at the light. What's wrong with these people, right? And you just start to spin. And part of the reason is because you know that it should not take this. Your brain knows it should not take this long to get to work. So it's trying to push you to find a faster way to get there. Other situations, do you guys remember dial-up internet connections?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I tried to forget.
I'm cleaning out my office, and I found an unopened, get like 10 hours free AOL. Remember those? I kept it just for the entertainment value, so I could show my hopefully grandchildren one day, and they can go, oh, my God.
They'll understand the 14.4 modem. But that modem, what happened is we used to use our phone lines, and it would dial in. You'd actually hear the phone dialing, and then it would start screaming at you.
Oh, yeah.
For like maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like an hour, And then what happened is we all got satellite or DSL or, T1 lines, and we all got wired directly into the internet and didn't have to use the phone lines and didn't have to hear that sound. But then you'd go to like the school library or your grandma's house or something, and you'd still have to use a dial-up. And that dial-up sound and that time it took to get online was just excruciating, in part because the brain knows there's a faster way to get this done. It's rotary phones versus push-button phones. It's, it's unique to humans. It's why we have buildings and trash cans and stoplights and all this shit that raccoons could never have, because raccoon brains don't work like this. Human brains do. And so the same thing happens when it comes to sex. You go home with a great sex toy, it feels awesome. You start to have an orgasm in 4 minutes rather than 20 minutes. Then you go back to partner play, and your brain starts to pull you out of the experience because they feel like there's a faster way to get this done. And so if you have a customer or a friend or someone who says to you, I'm not orgasming with my partner since I got this sex toy, the truth of the matter is they just need to switch their play up a little bit. Sometimes use their fingers, sometimes use the toys. And that's going to help their brain recognize that different kinds of orgasms for different kinds of play, and there's value in that. But it's actually a problem with the brain, not the physical body.
Oh.
No, yeah. The thing is that women are also, I mean, it can take some guys a bit of time before they're ready to go again. Women, little rest and you can go again. Just think of it as multiple.
Yeah.
You can have one and then move on to another.
But that's an interesting way to look at it and saying, hey, this isn't going to cause a rift. It's just something that I need to make an adjustment for in my ongoing program, if you will, which I think is super smart. Okay. Colleen and I were laughing because we had a Dr. Markey Twist on our last show, and she's a sex educator. I mean, she's literally the head of a program at a college here locally, and we were talking about all the studies that come out about how to keep your sex life interesting. And, Colleen and I find 10 of these a week, right? And we threw it to her. And I thought her answer was really interesting, is why is there so many of these and why are they looking at this stuff? And she said once one researcher comes up with an answer, everybody else needs to study it because it does give legitimacy. So from your different vantage point of this, though, I really want to know what you have to say, Ducky Doolittle, about the rut and how to get out of it when it comes to a sexual partnership.
Oh, the rut. The rut is the rut is a really natural, normal place to find yourself. It's really, really normal. And you generally find yourself in a rut with the person you love the most, the love of your life. That's who we fall into ruts with. Because what happens is when you first meet someone, everybody who's ever fallen for someone, even crushes, you feel this high pitched energy. There's a lot of neurochemical hormone exchange. There's a lot of anticipatory delight. Do I like them? Do they like me? Will they text me? Will they call? Where are we going? You're learning a lot of new things together. You're learning what kind of music they like, and you go to new movies together. And there's a lot of new things being entered into your brain and into your body at that time. You're learning each other's bodies if you're having sex together, and all that stuff is really exciting. And then you realize, this is the real thing. I love this person. So we're going to get married, or we're going to move in together. And we're going to create a life, and we're going to create some stability together, right? We're going to have some kids and some car payments and
all that good stuff.
All of that kind of stuff. But that stuff is not bad. That's what builds a family, and that's what makes people feel happy and stable. Right, to keep your toothbrush in the same place and to have some structure and routine in your life. That makes people feel really grounded and happy. But it's not always the best thing for your sex life. Because what happens is that two people fall in love, they get to know each other, they start to figure out what sex positions work for them, what moves work for them, and so and then they fall into their routines of life. And then sex becomes, it's Wednesday night, I take a shower, you take a shower, I go down on you, you go down on me, we have intercourse, good night. Right?
Yeah.
But the thing about especially, if you have a female in this relationship, the thing about the female brain is that, earlier I was talking about nobody explains our own anatomy to us, and it's kind of this organic hunt that we go on. But the thing that people don't realize about the female body is that we have as much erectile tissue in our bodies as guys have. But for guys, it's rather easy. Right now, I'm holding my pen in between my legs like a penis. Okay, so that I can look down at my penis and see the erectile tissue. I can touch it. And what happens for guys because of this, they have a really clear line of communication between their erectile tissue and their brain. And this makes it they're fortunate in that fact. For females, all of our erectile tissue is inside our bodies. We can't see any of it, and for a lot of us, we can't touch all of it without the help of a toy or a partner. And then nobody tells us where it is, and they don't even tell us the names of our body parts. So we have this very abstract relationship with our own bodies. And so for a guy to become erect, he can touch his body, and he can look at his erectile tissue, and he can have a different kind of relationship with it. But for a female to become completely erect, what happens is you can use physical stimulation, a vibrator, fingers, right, a penis, but also the brain needs to be engaged, because the brain starts sending signals to that erectile tissue to start puffing up. And that happens, that's what anticipation is. That's what flirting is. That's what, that's why we need all of that sort of playfulness in order to really get hard for sex. And if we know what's coming, it's Wednesday night, I take a shower, you take a shower, I go down on you, you go down on me, good night. we don't get any of that feedback, any of that interaction between the brain and the pussy, as I like to call it. And we need that. And so, just the act of a couple walking into Fantasy Gifts and walking the walls is good for their sex life. Even if they don't have the money to buy something, it's a great thing to say, to pick something up off the wall and hold it in their hand and then put it in their partner's hands. And the two of them look at each other and go, maybe, like that.
We see that all the time. Folks so coming in.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're curious and they, look at one thing and then they'll look at a bunch of stuff and it within the next couple of months, one or both of them are back picking up the other things they looked at. But, they're, you've got a budget.
Yep.
We get that.
Yep.
And it's really fun to see that.
But that's great. That's so good for their relationship and their sex life. But so it can be trying new things in terms of sex, but studies have shown that even continuing to bring new things to the table outside of sex. Like if you've always wanted to play a board game, play that board game. If you've always wanted to hike that hill, hike that hill. Like the two of you have got to continue to have experiences with each other that are outside the routine. Date nights and exploring a sex shop and, all of these things are and learning together and going to other kinds of workshops, be them art or, learning how to fix a car engine together. All of these things keep people bonded.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that you can, hopefully anything you can hold hands going to and from. I see that. I could. I'm a hand holder, and so is my partner. And when we go out, we will notice other couples holding hands. You're like, they're just something that we, that are actually touching each other when they're out, versus the folks that seem completely disengaged. Yeah. And you can just sort of you don't want to pretend that you know what's going on with someone, but we see that a lot. But then again, we're hand holders, so we notice that.
But you know what that is? You know what you're feeding each other when you do that? Mm-hmm. It's oxytocin. Yeah, that's a great way. Like oxytocin is the hormone or the neurochemical that helps us bond, and we get it with affection. So like oxytocin, I'm trying to help define it. Mm-hmm. We get it every time that we hold hands, every time we touch our partner, when we hug. They say usually you have to be touching for about 20 seconds or more before the body starts to create it. And we get oxytocin from our pets. It's why it helps people live longer. It lowers blood pressure. So, that crazy cat lady who has 10 cats is not so crazy because what's happening there is she's feeding herself and her pets oxytocin. They're truly bonded,
As you're saying this, my dog is kind of leaned up against me here in the studio.
Yes.
We have Fred the studio dog.
Yes, I'm feeling.
Fred's like, give me some oxytocin, Mom.
Yeah,
I got bored with my feet. He was sleeping on my feet, but now he's done.
But the studies also show that people of a masculine persuasion get more oxytocin from affection than they do sex, and so people who are feminine get more oxytocin from sex than they do affection, and that's some of the tug of war you see in relationships as well. Is that, you'll hear somebody say, every time I touch you, you want sex. Well, that's because when we start to touch, we start to thump with oxytocin, and it makes us want to bond in lots of ways. And so when you're talking about the rut, and you're talking about your hand holding, and then I'm like, yes, oxytocin. That's what you're giving each other.
If I asked for that, or not necessarily me, but I could just imagine somebody going home, honey, I could really use some oxytocin. It's like, that's a controlled substance. What the hell is your problem? It's like, no. So it's like, it's funny. We talk about this stuff, Colleen. These concepts are not necessarily things that we haven't touched on here and there or whatever, but it's funny. The more different perspectives we get, Ducky, from people like you that are out there that interact with people, or if they're in the research community, it's great to hear it. I mean, this stuff doesn't get old because I think that we are so lacking in this sort of knowledge and understanding. Don't you think, Colleen?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned before that I know my daughter knows how to put a condom on a banana, but I'm pretty sure that other than the plumbing, they did not learn very much.
Yeah.
So if there are, resources out there, your website, other websites, stuff like that, I love that because my kid may not want to actually ask me a question about how things work that way.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that she does, but I'm not gonna,
Well, and okay, I want to put this question to both of you because Colleen, I'm not a mom. Colleen, you're a mom, and Ducky, I'm not sure if you are, but you certainly are out there educating people. What is like a good age appropriate time for, let's just say girls, because you have one, Colleen.